Good morning. It is 9 o'clock. What are we here for? Welcome. Thank you. The most wonderful and amazing people are in this room today. My name is Marty Lawrence. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be with you this morning and to introduce one of my very favorite people, the very courageous and brave Lauren King, who is going to talk with us this morning about what's going on in our community. I cannot express enough how meaningful it is to have this room full of people that care passionately about what is happening with our neighbors. I am certainly one of those people, and I know that when I see all of you that we're in this together, and we know that we can do better by our neighbors that are experiencing homelessness. So if you all would be so kind as to join me with a very vigorous welcome to the wonderful Miss Lauren King, CEO of Partnership Home.
That was quite the welcome from Marty. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited. I've been released to walk around this year. My name is Lauren King. I'm the CEO of Partnership Home. Thank you so much for coming today. Really appreciate you taking time to be here. It's really meaningful to Partnership Home, and we have lots of partners in the audience as well. And to those of you who are watching online, hopefully I have some people who are watching online, and thank you for taking time to do that as well. Gotta turn my clicker on. Hold on one second. Or Patrick, can you help me advance my slide? Oh, wait, I'm not on now. Hold on.
Your laptop is over there. So
Okay, my laptop is over here. There we go. All right.
is it working?
It is. Okay, so this year I'm actually going to change it up just a little bit, not a lot, don't worry. You're still going to get all your numbers and that sort of thing. But I am going to talk a little bit about Partnership Home, just so you all know who we are. Most of you in here are our friends and people we work with all the time, so you know about us, but just to make sure people know who Partnership Home is, what we do, and what our role is. But first, I actually want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for being here today, and I will say thank you especially to all of our partners. So all of the outreach workers, shelter workers, housing program, case managers, everyone who provides homeless services, you are so important in our community, and Partnership Home would not be able to do our work without you. I have been especially grateful for you lately, not that I'm not always grateful for you, but I've been especially grateful lately. In a strange twist of events, I got invited to a summit at the White House about homelessness in April. And one of the things I really walked away with, it was a summit on treatment and addiction. I actually did not have a lot to say. You'll be surprised after you listen to me talk for 40 minutes this morning, but I did not have a lot to say because that is not my area of expertise. So I did not, I don't know what to tell you about what is a good treatment outcome or different things like that. But I know what's worked well in our community as far as convening, building community, and collaborating with one another. But I walked away feeling so grateful for our community because we have worked hard over the past 8 years to really rebuild our system, to work together, to really understand what one another does, understand that we need each other, and really welcome people to the table. So it's not about who's doing what right, or why are you doing this, or why are you doing that, but really how can we help you, how can we help each other, and really keeping the people that we serve at the center of everything. I walked away feeling a bit frustrated after that as well, because it felt like for a lot of communities around the US, they've kind of lost the plot. We spent so much time arguing about what's the right way to address homelessness that we forgot about the people who are at the center of what we're supposed to be doing here. And so for us, I would ask us to always keep that centered. Marty mentioned that you're here because you care about what's happening to our neighbors. So like I said, I just want to start with a word of thanks because I'm especially grateful for this community, everything that you all do, and your willingness to come together. Oh, sorry, forgot I'm supposed to be pointed over here. Okay, I'll get this down. Maybe I should switch hands. Okay, so a little bit about Partnership Home and why we're here and what we do. So our vision is a shared vision with all of you. Our vision is a vibrant community where everyone has a place to call home. Our mission is to transform the community through leadership, partnership, and innovation. It's very broad, it's intentionally broad. We want to help you do what you're doing. Oh my gosh. Sorry guys, I'll get it at some point. So what do we do? So Partnership Home does not provide any direct services to people experiencing homelessness. We feel that our role is really our clients, if you will, are our partner agencies. So the foundation of our work is strong partnerships. So we do our work to help partners do theirs. So whatever it is that our partners are wanting to do, we want to help them and support them get there. I am not going to tell them how to do that. I am not an expert in street outreach. I'm not an expert in running a shelter. I know some about running housing programs, but we are going to do whatever we can to support them and help them get where they want to go. We also provide thought leadership. So often they will ask for guidance. We will look to other communities. Other communities look to us as well to say, how'd you do that? What are you doing? And you'll hear about a program later that we have had different groups reach out about. We presented about the High Impact Program from the City of Fort Worth. So we provide thought leadership not only locally, but then also on a state and national level as well. And then we bring innovative solutions. So that is ideas and money. So we can have all the ideas in the world, and if we have no money to do them, I'm not gonna say it doesn't matter, but it's gonna be a lot harder. So we try hard to bring whatever resources we can into the community for our partners. So not necessarily things that Partnership Home is going to do, but if we see a need, bringing a resource in and having a partner try something, do something, enhance something that we wanna do. Oh my gosh, just give you all a chuckle every time I do that. There we go. So the areas we work in, today we're specifically gonna talk about managing homeless response. That is the bulk of where our work has been historically, but I believe that as an organization, we should be trying hard to get to be a community where no one has to experience homelessness. So for us, that means moving upstream. And so in addition to homelessness, we also work in investing in homeless prevention. That looks like more than just rental assistance. So how do we do different innovative things to help people not lose their housing? The best way to address homelessness is to help it happen, not happen in the first place. And then advancing affordable housing. So we want to help people who are developing housing, whether that be people who are building PSH, people who are building multifamily, people who are creating affordable homeownership, but we want to help move that forward as well, because any affordable housing that we can bring, we feel like is a good thing. Okay, so what you're here for. So the 2026 Point in Time Count. The Point in Time Count is a census that we hold on the 4th Thursday of every January. This year it was held on, January 22nd? And we had about 400 volunteers go out with police officers in Fort Worth and Arlington to go out and survey and count people who are experiencing homelessness. It is a census, it's a one-time snapshot, so while we do use this data to look as a historical look back, we've been counting about the same way for about 20 years now. And so we use it as a historical look back. We also understand that it is not the best way to understand homelessness. So I just have a few slides about point in time count, but then we'll talk about annual numbers, because we feel like our annual numbers give a much broader picture, a much more thorough picture of what homelessness looks like in our community. I have to extend my hand a little bit. Yeah, here, there we go. All right, Jenny's gonna advance that for me. Can I actually just put this down and have someone advance the slides? Yes. Okay, great. Okay, so much better. Okay, so this year our point in time count is 3,014 people who are experiencing homelessness on the night of the count. That is an increase. It is the first time that I have seen this number over 3,000. So it's significant. I will say I don't know that I've had a lot of surprise. People don't seem surprised by the fact that the number has gone up. It is a 14% increase from 2025. You can see that we had more people who were sheltered and also more unsheltered people. So people who were unsheltered were 1,334. People who were sheltered were almost 1,500. Yes, 1,494. HUD also requires us to count transitional housing. We don't necessarily agree with this, but HUD requires us to count transitional housing, so we had 167 people as well. Also, there's a tiny little line in there for Safe Haven. Presbyterian Night Shelter operates a Safe Haven facility, which is for people with severe mental illness. There were 19 people in that facility on the night of the count. So like I said, it's a 14% increase. You'll see numbers will be a little bit different when we look at other things, other types of numbers. You can see 2021, we've talked a lot about when 2021 falls off the slide, it'll make things look a little bit different, right? Because that's a strange baseline. In 2021, if you recall, we were going through a pandemic, and what did we have? We had a lot of rental assistance. So we kept people housed. Homelessness that year had fallen by about 40%. And so turns out when you keep people housed, there is less homelessness. Go to the next slide. This is the point in time count in Fort Worth specifically. So Fort Worth's numbers look a little bit different, and I'll actually show you kind of the geographic breakdown as well. But there were 1,083 people who were unsheltered. That is, I believe, a 13% increase from actually a 14% increase, and then total it's a 13% increase from the year before. Had quite a few more people who were sheltered as well. So essentially all of those numbers went up, but that is what the City of Fort Worth numbers specifically look like over the past 5 years. Go to the next one. That said, so you just heard me talk about there's a 14% increase, there's a 13% increase. This is why we say we can look at numbers so many different ways. If you look at our per capita homelessness, obviously this is a much, much longer time period, and thank you, City of Fort Worth, for these numbers. But if you look at our homeless population in comparison to our general population, the percentage is going down. So it's, 0.02% of the population who experiences homelessness in our community. I say that not to say everything's okay and all is good, and you don't have to worry about anything. That's not it at all. It's all a matter of perspective. So what are we looking at? So this would tell me that our system is actually doing a really good job. Despite the fact that we have had an increase in our point in time counts, our population is increasing faster than, the general population is increasing faster than the homeless population. So that tells me we're keeping things at bay. That said, homelessness, we will not efficiency our way out of this unless we have more resources. We will not be able to lower this number. But I just wanted you also to also see that, so, and not just take away like, oh my gosh, it went up by 14%. Yes, the census, the one night census did go up by 14%. However, homelessness is not growing as fast as our population, which is a good thing. And so that's what that looks like. I wanted you to also see this. This is a graph of where people were. So for unsheltered and sheltered, because these look different. So often in homelessness, we'll talk about, perhaps more in the political sphere, we'll talk about homelessness as Fort Worth's problem. So all people experiencing homelessness are in Fort Worth, or most of them are, and so Fort Worth should deal with it. It's not anybody else's problem to deal with. For us, it's not true. I think for the City of Fort Worth, they also feel like that's not true. But this is just a representation for unsheltered people on the night of the count. 81% were in Fort Worth, 8% were in Arlington, 4% were in Parker County, and 8% were in Tarrant County outside of Fort Worth and Arlington. So think Mansfield, Grapevine, Hurst, Euless, Bedford, those areas. So still, most people in Fort Worth. But if you look at our sheltered, the vast majority of our shelter beds are in Fort Worth. So almost 90% of our shelter beds are in Fort Worth. And it just, I mean, I don't know what to say about it outside of that's how it goes. But so you can see kind of, it's not a perfect division amongst sheltered and unsheltered. But just wanted you all to see that to say, we often say, is it the chicken or the egg? Is it that more people from Fort Worth are homeless and so Fort Worth should deal with it? Or is it the fact that if you're homeless in North Richland Hills, you're either going to be in this 8% of unsheltered or you're going to come to Fort Worth or Arlington, right? So you don't have any services to access, you don't have any shelter to access. So if you're homeless outside of somewhere besides Fort Worth or Arlington, you are going to come to one of those cities to get resources. So keep that in mind. Go to the next one. This is a heat map of where people were on the night of the count. So of course you can see in the middle here in the central city that it was a very dense population right there. You may say, okay, great, I see that most people were in the central city. However, for us, if you were to look at this 10 years ago, this has spread out quite a bit, right? So there's a lot more out by the loop. a lot more that have gone further east and further west, and I would even say further south. So you can see Northside up here has a bit of a concentration as well. That said, one thing I would say about this is that people are concentrated around where services are. So in the when I pointed out the north side, there is a specific outreach focus on the north side. So people go where the services are too. So there's that. Okay, so talked about point in time counts. Now we're going to go into annual numbers and kind of what our system looks like overall. Jenny, you can go to the next one. So this is our homeless response system. Hopefully all of you have seen, all of you who work in homeless services have seen this and know it and love it. Like I said, our shared community, sorry, there are chairs over here, and I want to walk over here as to not leave you all out, but the chairs are really blocking my way here. Anyway, just know I'm also over here with you. So like I said, our shared community vision is a vibrant community where everyone has a place to call home and the resources to live their best life. We don't say what that looks like or how that gets done, but we believe that we can be that community where everyone does have a place to call home. This system is our homeless response system. It's our system of care. We do believe that our homeless response system cannot only be providers. So as much as we rely on them and as much as they do, we also have to take a lot of other people into consideration. Stakeholders are up there at the top, and that's anyone impacted by homelessness. So cities, counties, funders, churches, businesses, neighborhoods, all of those, they all have a stake in homelessness. And even though it might feel like, oh, you're not doing anything, or why do we include that group? It's because they have a say in it. It does impact them. So if someone has someone living, behind their fence at their house, like that matters to them, and we should acknowledge that and address that. The leadership is the COC board, the Continuum of Care board. So we do have a strategy board. Think of them as a steering committee or a strategy board who sets the direction for how we respond to homelessness. So they set different community policies like who gets prioritized for housing, how we use the limited resources we have. So they're looking at big picture, what does our system look like and how do we need to move? I will say for a large system, this is shockingly nimble. So because everyone is at the table together, we are able to move pretty, dare I say, easily together on things. Partnership Home is the backbone of this. The Continuum of Care board is a strategy board and it's not incorporated, it has no money. So Partnership Home actually carries out what it wants to do. So we help partners understand the role that they play in the strategic plan, how to implement different aspects of it, and then report back to the board as well. These providers all have homelessness as their main mission, and then the partners are different systems that we connect with. Often I'll be asked, hey, do you work with the VA? Hey, do you work with the school district? The answer is yes. Every relationship is not perfect, and would I like things to be, our large systems to be connected more? Probably. But we do have a great relationship with a lot of different large systems to figure out how do we work together and how do we serve clients the best. Go to the next one. So this is a different number you're going to see and a different narrative, I guess you'll hear. So this is the total number of people, sheltered and unsheltered, who have experienced homelessness over the past 5 years. So in 2025, between January and December, we had 9,896 people who experienced homelessness. Those are individuals. So the household number would be lower, right? Because some of them are families with children and that sort of thing. But we had about, let's just call it 9,900 people who experienced homelessness. It's a 2% increase from the year before. So it's a lot different from a 14% increase, right? You can see it's been fairly level since 2022. 2021 was that kind of, not strange, but lower baseline year, but it's been fairly level for the past 4 years. So we had a 2% increase there. This is people who were accessed outreach and emergency shelter. Go to the next one. One thing I want to point out to you all is that these are the yellow is the same number, but the percentage of people who are newly homeless. So I think one thing that our community, it's easy to think about is that people are just cycling in and out of homelessness. So it's the same people over and over. They're never going to get housed. They're never going to change. They're never going to do anything. And for us as a community, that's not the case. Almost 50% of people who experienced homelessness last year were homeless for the first time. So that means that we had never had an interaction with them. So we had never seen them in our data system. They had never been to shelter. They had never accessed outreach before. So It kind of debunks that idea that people just are there forever and never get out, and it's the same people over and over. About half of the population, like I said, almost 50% was homeless for the first time. Nope. Well, okay, so I was like, wait, first time homelessness. Okay, this is actually, we look at subpopulations as well, so the special groups who may have different needs. So specifically, we look at veterans, youth, people over 55, big concern that I'll come back to, and families. And look at those to see, we look at those a lot to see how they're performing, what they're doing, what are different services that we can tailor to their needs. But you can see this shows the total number of these different groups who experienced homelessness, and then how many were newly homeless. So you can see that actually families have a larger number of people who are newly homeless for the first time. In our community, families, homelessness is caused mostly by economics. They cannot afford housing, childcare, transportation, food, medications, all the things. They cannot afford all the things. The numbers do not add up. I'm preaching to the choir here, you all know this. You see it all the time, and so families for us, more than 50% are homeless for the first time. Families also exit out of our system pretty quickly as well. So whenever we think about homelessness, we think about the person that we see all the time. We do not think about the people that are in shelter that are quickly moving through. So just wanted you all to see that. I talked a little bit about over 55. This group is a significant concern, I would say, for our community. Like the rest of our community, the homeless population is also aging. But more and more we are seeing that seniors are being priced out of their homes, right? So they also cannot, if they're on $1,000 in Social Security, $1,200 in Social Security, they should be paying $300 to $400 for rent, and that just does not exist. If it does, please let me know afterwards, or Kimberly Doty's back here as our Director of Housing. Other people may want to know this too, but with that limited income, people always say like, oh, are people going to get into these housing programs and they get a job? Yes, ideally. However, for people who are over 65, over 62, over 70, we're not necessarily looking at that. So how do we support them at the end of their life? And what does that look like for us? And so this population, we have seen it grow as a percentage of our population over the past few years. And I would say it's a significant concern that as a community, we're going to have to figure out how to address this. The next one. All right, here's another number for you. So every month, so this is why I say it's not that the point in time count is not important, but our system uses a lot of different numbers to look at how we should respond to things. Often I think, or I found that legislators are surprised when they say, do you have this data? Do you have that? Yes, we do. We have a lot of data that's available. Throughout the year, about 2,600 people were homeless each month. So that's different than my 3,000, that's different than my 9,000. So throughout the year, about 2,600 people were homeless each month. Goes down a little bit in the summer, just a little bit in June and July. Goes up more in the cold weather months, right? Because people are accessing cold weather shelter, likely. But wanted you all to know, we do track this to see who is homeless each month, or how many people are homeless each month. We're looking for, is there a dramatic change? Has something happened in our community? And also looking at these, how does this impact our providers, right? So for partners who are out here providing services to people, if we see a huge jump in one of these, what does that mean, right? For shelters, it actually means we're full and we can't take anymore. So then what, right? So then are we gonna see our unsheltered population go up, or what does that mean? So always looking at that and trying to think about, what does that mean for our community? So this is our monthly snapshot, something that people are always curious about. So each month we look at, like I said, how many people are experiencing homelessness. On average, we had, I said 26, but so 27, 23 was our typical month last year. The vast majority are people who are single adults over 25. So they're not part of a family, they're not in this youth group over here, and they are single adults over 25. So they could be single adults, they could be in a couple without children, but the vast majority of people are singles. We had 421 people who were in families. We typically have 421 people in families per month. That's about 158 families who are experiencing homelessness each month. About 120 18 to 24-year-olds are experiencing homelessness as well. And so we break this group out. They have some specific needs as well. And so how can we quickly serve them? And looking also, when we talk about going upstream, this group is especially important because then you start talking about foster care especially, and how do we kind of stop that foster care pipeline to homelessness. So of this group, 78 are veterans. So on a monthly basis, we have about 78 veterans. I will say, I think this is an incredible number for our community. We lowered this very drastically in 2018 when we had a Veterans Challenge to house 100 veterans in 100 days. And since then, the VA has been an incredible partner with us working to house veterans. If you look at how our veterans population has dropped, people often say, how do you do it? They invested in housing. They partnered with HUD and invested in housing. And now there are much fewer veterans. And then about 834 people each month report that they have been homeless for longer than a year. That's not necessarily a year of service in our system, but they have told whoever they're working with that they have been homeless for more than a year. So that's generally what the population looks like on a monthly basis. So some successes. So we had a lot of successes. I feel like our community is successful, and often, I think people will say like, oh, but it's not perfect. Oh, but it's not, could you change this or that? Yes, we could, but it also takes resources, right? So our community is really good at using what we have, doing the best with what we can with what we have. Last year we had 2,084 households found a place to call home. So they moved into a permanent destination from homelessness. So that means they either moved into a housing program, they were able to rent by themselves, they were able to do a variety of things, but to get out of homelessness. Our 40 partner agencies who are providing services did this for all these households. Partnership Home brought on 42 new landlord partners. So I'll talk about some nationally known things that we are known for, but landlord engagement is one of those. So we have a group of staff at Partnership Home who work specifically with landlords to give people a second chance at home. So not only do we advocate for building new housing, but it's also access to existing housing. Because if people who are experiencing homelessness can't find a place to live, that's going to propose a problem, right? And so landlord engagement works with them to understand what it means to give someone a second chance. They can step in if there's an issue and need something resolved. But we have about 200 community landlords, and if all the units were available, it would be almost 25,000. So we have quite a variety available to us. One thing about homeless services that you may not know is that we all enter into a central database. It's funny, I'm looking at all the partners and you're like, yes, I know, HMIS, so much. We all enter into a shared database. And so you may think like, oh, how do you know all this? Or what does this look like? Or how do you know where people go? And what if people are providing the same services? Good news, we can see all that. We have a shared database. Partnership Home owns and manages that database. But there are 163 different programs that are addressing homelessness in our community. They're all doing different things. They may be serving the same population, but they're all doing different things and provided by different organizations. And then we also provide training. So we provided almost 500 hours of training to a lot of you in this room. Some of you will stay today for the rest of the training. But we provided almost 500 hours in training to all of our partner agencies on best practices. And we really try to listen to our partners, and when they tell us, here's what we need, here's what would be helpful, bring that in and provide that for them. You can go to the next one. Some other community successes, and I'm actually going to ask Tara and Bethany to come up and talk about a program that the city has invested in. But we do have a high level of collaboration. So I know that everybody's like, collaboration's thing. We actually put this into action and look at how can we work together? What does this mean? How do we do things to best help the people that we're trying to serve? So we have that high level of collaboration. I like to say we put it into action. It's not just a word. We have a best fit approach, so one size does not fit all. So this idea that someone can go to a shelter and get on a waiting list is not a thing here. We are going to try really hard to give that person what they need. So, for example, if someone is employed and has lost their housing for some reason, they have bounced around and now finally they have ended up in shelter. They're still employed, they're still working full time. They can go into a program called Rapid Exit that is run by Presbyterian Night Shelter. Crystal, looking at you. Where we can help them get over that barrier of, and when I say we, it's always the royal we here, over that barrier of getting back into housing. So once you lose your housing, it's going to cost you $5,000-ish to get back in. you're gonna have to pay a double deposit, you're gonna have to pay a high risk fee, you're gonna have to pay maybe for some less months rent. It's gonna cost you a lot of money. And if you're making $15 an hour, it's going to take you forever to get back into that house or get back into that apartment. And so Rapid Exit can actually pay those deposits, pay those first month's rent, and get them back on their way again. So that's one example of a really short term. Everyone does not need long-term help. And so we really try to figure out what do people need and how do we give them that. I've talked about landlord engagement, and then we have new local resources here specifically in Fort Worth. The city of Fort Worth has invested for a number of years in homeless services, but this past year, actually, or in 24, I guess, actually started a program called High Impact. So I'm gonna have Tara and Bethany come up and talk about that.
You can keep it on.
Need this for this.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Lauren, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk for a second about High Impact, a program that the city is really proud of. And you know, Lauren also mentioned Rapid Exit, and the city also funds outreach and some permanent supportive case management. There's a lot of ways we fund programs at the city, and so I want to say thank you to all of you, because when I say the city funds something, what we really mean is we partner with the people in this room. You know, we work closely with Tara and the city team, and then we put those agreements out into the universe, and then you are the folks that make that happen. So thank you for the work that you do so that the city can advance the goals that it is after in reducing unsheltered homelessness. So we want to talk a little bit about one of the newest of those programs, which is High Impact. As Lauren mentioned, in 2024, that is a program that very much came out of the space that we're in at the city, which is you're hearing the same feedback over and over and over again. You're hearing from law enforcement, you're hearing from elected officials, community members, neighborhood associations, and the folks in this room that there is this deep need for something that helps someone who's at this intersection of long-term unsheltered homelessness and severe mental illness. And it's a gap in the system that there's not a program a lot of the times that is impactful enough to really serve that person, because they're very high needs, very difficult to stabilize, and it might just be something that's going to fall through the gaps for a long time. And so it's with deep appreciation to our city council members who, in hearing this, they said we'd like to see staff partner with the folks in this room and others to come up with a program so we can impact that group, and then the city council would like to fund that to move forward. And so it was a 17-month pilot, and now it's a full program, and it's been really exciting to see that grow. And it's the council has given us positive feedback to keep it growing, and we've been working with all of you to do that. And it's been a really effective program, and so I'm gonna hand the lapel here to Tara for a second to really talk about what it looks like in that effectiveness.
So we now have a strong housing pathway for individuals thanks to our partners. So 55 of our hardest to house are now housed with city funds, and we're serving a total of 80 folks. Fort Worth Housing Solutions stepped forward with a commitment for 30 vouchers, allowing us to expand even more. We're about 2 years in, but so far seeing a lot of client success. And what that looks like is about 85% of the referrals, mainly from law enforcement, have accepted housing offers. And 93% have been housed at least 1 year. Having in mind that the average person in the program has been homeless, probably unsheltered for about 10 years, we're really excited to see that already 38% are accepting substance use services, and 62% are receiving mental health services. And the strength of this program is based on partnership. Partnership Home has provided the landlord expertise in engagement and leasing of units. Acclaim, or JPS, brings expert medical care to clients' door. MHMR not only provides a high level of psychiatric care and housing case management, but also leadership. Together, they have created a team that is extremely creative in problem solving with the motto of whatever it takes, while also treating each person with the dignity they deserve on their journey. And so I wanted to thank all the members of the High Impact team because this is successful because of your work. It also would not have been possible without the leadership and support of Fort Worth City Council. They committed to funding the program and have also challenged us to expand it and to think bigger. And so that is the key reason why we're seeing real progress on housing individuals who've been struggling the longest.
Thank y'all. So I'll also add a little bit about High Impact in that it is really serving people who I think neighborhoods council members said, you're never going to be able to house this person. Like they want to be on the streets, they've been on the streets forever, you're never going to be able to house them. And the program has really shown that that is not true. People don't want to be outside. They want to have a place to live. It may look different as far as what the services cost or what the services are, and what that looks like, but people want to have a place to call home. I wanted to tell y'all something about cost. It was really, I went to a city council work session or meeting when they were talking about this program, and one of the comments by city council really struck me about, because it is an expensive program. It's an expensive program to run. It serves a small number of high needs people, but they also are costing our city a lot of money through EMS, through jail, through all the different things, right? And so one city council person said, this is a really expensive program. Like, how are we going to sustain this? It's X number of dollars per person. And another one said, I hear you, but it costs about the same to keep someone homeless. And so what kind of community do we want to be? Do we want to be the community that we pay, X thousands of dollars to keep someone homeless? Or do we want to be the kind of community that pays that same amount of money to keep someone housed? And so it really struck me, and I appreciated that that understanding of, who do we want to be and how do we want to treat our neighbors? Jenny, will you actually go back one slide and then click on Best Fit Approach? So one other new thing I want to tell you all about is Tarrant Cares. So we have launched Tarrant Cares, not launched Tarrant Cares, I'm sorry. It is a collaborative project between us, Mental Health Connection, let me get my notes out here, MHMR, and Partnership Home. And so Tarrant Cares has been around for quite some time. But we have added a housing portal to that. So I mentioned that Partnership Home does not do any direct services. And so we had operated a helpline for many years, and we were looking for a way to connect people to services that was not through that helpline, because the helpline was giving people phone numbers and referring them to different places. And so we opted to go with Tarrant Cares. They have a great portal, we feel like, and the thing that we also like about it, there are Pocket Pals that you all can take. So our Pocket Pal is a resource guide that you can take. It fits in your pocket. But it does have a QR code for Tarrant Cares, because the thing we like about this is that our partners can go and update their information. So we struggled with the Pocket Pal because as soon as we printed it, it'd be like someone changed their entry hours, which is fine. But then our agencies have the wrong information out there. And so now our partners can go and update this, update Tarrant Cares. It has a good, we feel like a really good AI tool actually that will help people navigate the site and really tell what's available. The other thing that we have is our housing crisis screening. So I had this under Best Fit Approach because one of the things we wanted to do was really help people figure out what kind of resources they need. Often our shelters are getting calls and people are showing up and saying, I need housing, but they don't actually need shelter yet. And so one of our thoughts was like, how do we help take that burden off of our partners, and how they have enough to do besides kind of fielding all these different calls. And so this helps us figure out how to direct people, helps people can self-direct, or case managers can do this with other people or with people they're serving. So wanted to let you all know about Tarrant Cares, and just another way that we're trying to help navigate people to the right fit and really figure out what they need before they get to us. Jenny, if you'll go back to our presentation. Sorry, let me get back to it. I kind of messed this up. I was like, I threw them for a loop with my link that I put in last night. So some things about looking forward. So we are navigating uncertainty. I've got lots of questions about kind of where we're going, what this looks like, and how we're going to handle it. So if you'll go to the next one. So there is a lot of federal policy change that's happening. A lot of you have heard me talk about this before. A lot of us have worked through some problem solving that has gone on with this. But at the federal level, there will be significant policy change that happens. Congress has mandated that HUD put out a notice of funding opportunity by June 1. Supposedly it's going to come out by the end of this month. We'll see. But some changes that have happened is that they have put some caps on our funding. The biggest change that will impact clients is that permanent housing can only be 30% of our spending. So to give you an idea, one of Partnership Home's jobs is to pull down money from the federal government on behalf of our community. So every year they say, here's how much money you're eligible for. Partnership Home does a local competition, and then we tell HUD, here's what we want to spend this money on. Our community has ranked these applications, it aligns with our needs, here's what we want to spend this money on. And so to give you an idea, this year we got about $22 million in our community. So total for different housing, and we spend about 20 of that on housing programs. So that would be rental assistance plus case management, a variety of permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing. So we spend about 20 of that on housing. Our 30% will be $6.4 million. So we will go from spending $20 million on housing down to $6.4 million. It will be a change. And as much as I want to say, I am the eternal optimist, guys. As much as I want to be like, you know what, we'll be okay. We'll figure this out. People will return to homelessness because of this policy change. They just will. Like, we have so many people in our programs who, they don't have another safety net. They're on a fixed income. They don't have a way to, increase their income or change or move or whatever it's going to take. And so people will return to homelessness with this policy change. And I'll tell you a little bit more about numbers and kind of what those look like in a second. But the shift away from shifting away from housing, we are kind of going back to what HUD used to do, I would say 15 years-ish ago, 20 years ago, in funding transitional housing, supportive services, and that includes a treatment focus, an employment focus, and can also fund outreach. We have to include faith-based organizations. I mentioned that I have been talking nationally to a lot of people. This is always an interesting one for me because we're like, and yes, we do that. So we have to include faith-based organizations, but apparently a lot of communities don't, so that's a mandate. And we have to work with law enforcement, which we already do, and ICE. We can check that box because we're in Texas. So that's some of the federal policy change that's coming. Jenny, if you'll go to the next one. This is what it looks like people for people. Right now with COC funding specifically, so the $22 million that I talked about, we are serving about let's just call it 750 households with permanent supportive housing, about almost 300 with rapid rehousing. And so we will lose about 400 permanent supportive housing units. So that's the group that we're most concerned about as far as that's the group that is most likely to return to homelessness. And then we will lose all of our rapid rehousing. Rapid rehousing, we think that those programs can more easily move to transitional housing. And so we're looking at that and how that works. But this rapid rehousing is a shorter term program for families. So not that will be detrimental, but it's not quite as detrimental as the permanent supportive housing situation. We go to the next one. So this is the money part of things that we have. So we'll have a loss of $7.5 million in permanent supportive housing. We will lose all of our rapid rehousing, and they'll go into different categories there. So like I said, we can only spend the 6.4 on permanent supportive housing. And then we also get a bonus if we spend at least 30% on supportive housing. So we will probably spend 6.4 there as well. You should see information come out about a competition, and so we'll keep you all updated on that. You can go to the next one. And actually, I'll say a little, before I go into this policy change, I'll go into kind of what we're doing. So one, I want you all to know that it's not just all doom and gloom and like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? Like I said, this is going to impact people's lives. So don't take it lightly. I don't think any of our partners take it lightly. However, we're doing a lot of work together as a community. I'm not gonna say that we can figure it all out. And I will say, I don't like how this policy change has happened, right? The rhetoric around the issue has been very amped up. Lots of negative things said about people experiencing homelessness. But for us, really, I have asked our partners to really center what we want to do as a community. Homelessness is a community issue, and we will have to figure out what we want to do as a community. How do we want to respond? What do we want this to look like? It's never going to be something that HUD can mandate to us and say, here's exactly what you should do. As a community, we're going to have to decide what we want to do. And so really looking at how do we use HUD funding as we can, right? So how do we use this policy change as a jumping off point to what we want? And I'll give you an example of something that we couldn't do before that we're interested in doing now. One of the policy changes is that now services are required. So people have to engage, people have to participate in services. And so something that our partners have said they think we need, something that clients have told us they want, is sober housing. Previously, we could not fund that intervention with continuum of care funds because it's required. You're required to be sober when you come into the program. You're required to stay sober. I mentioned that treatment and recovery, not my area of expertise, guys. We'll let other people do that. But that's something that we were not able to do, right? So that's an intervention to say, okay, how do we know that we want this as a community, so how do we use this funding to our advantage to make things happen that we want? And so we're really having those conversations about who is in what type of housing program, can we match in a better way? What does this look like for our partners? How do we help them do what they're doing? How do we help them change if they want to change? So I want you to know that we're not just sitting by being like, oh man, it really stinks that all this policy, we're just letting it happen to us. We are actively trying to use it to say, how do we want to change things? What do we want to look like in 2030 or next year or the year after, right? So just know that we are actively doing things, we're actively planning, we will make changes to our system, and things may look different going forward. Maybe next year when we're here, I'll tell you about some changes. Some additional policy change I just want you to know about. The FY27 budget does propose slashing HUD's budget by probably 50% again. Congress did not allow that to happen last year, but it has been proposed by the president. CDBG specifically is something that becomes pretty contentious. So that has been zeroed out. CDBG is a formula grant that municipalities get and states get. That has been zeroed out at this point, but for rural communities especially, that's one of the only sources they have for infrastructure. So that has a big impact and has not been well received typically. One of their goals is they would like to consolidate ESG, which is Emergency Solutions Grant, and the Continuum of Care, consolidate all homeless response together and make it a state block grant. I know I have a vested interest in this not being a state block grant, but I don't know what that would look like. I like that our community we don't have to even do what Dallas does. We don't have to do what Dallas does. We don't have to do what Austin does. We don't have to do what Houston does, right? So I like that even within our continuum of care, Fort Worth has one approach, Arlington has an approach, and Weatherford has an approach, right? Homeless services doesn't have to look the same in every place. And so dictating what our response would be through a state block grant is just, I don't see it going well. And we are preparing for a significant decrease in federal funding. So what does that look like and how do we manage that? Some state policy change, because we're going back into the state term in January. Last session, there was a bill to severely restrict where homeless services could be provided. And so I'm assuming that is going to come back to life. Not sure, have not heard about it just yet. That would have a devastating impact on our communities, both Fort Worth and Arlington. And so just being proactive on that bill. So that is on the table. And then looking at involuntary commitment. So how do we help people get into the services they need, right? Texas loves freedom, so we're not going to involuntarily commit people for long periods of time by any means, but looking at after they're stabilized involuntarily, then what? So that's our question, right? So great that you've made this easier to do this, and then what? And then if they return to the street, they're not going to stay stabilized. How do we best support them and help them move into housing right after that? So those are some things I don't have answers for right now, but I just wanted to put this on your radar so you knew kind of what was coming. Okay, so some key takeaways for you. I know I have just 10 minutes for questions. That QR code actually will go to Tarrant Cares, so snap that, save it. We'll post this presentation. Of course, there are Pocket Pals with the same QR code on it, but just wanted y'all to have that. I will, if you all, hopefully you've been jotting down notes. I should have told you before. But if you all have questions, I'm happy to answer questions. I think that we are also watching questions online. So if anybody's watching online and they want to ask a question, I will take those as well. Oh my gosh, it's such a good job at covering that y'all don't have any questions, which is fine. Are there any questions online? Okay.
With the decrease in the permit supported housing from 763 to 350, what's the plan for all the?
Those 400. So her question was, with the decrease in permanent supportive housing from 763 to 350, sorry, what's the plan for those? So right now we're actually going through a process where we have pulled, this is going to get data and technical, but we have pulled the information, demographic information on all the people who are in all the various housing programs, right? Because we have other housing interventions that are not continuum of care funded. And so we're looking at the people in those programs to say, are you in the right type of program? So I'll give you an example. One of the policy changes for the COC will be that permanent supportive housing is for people who are over 62 and with a physical disability. So we'll be looking at how do we ensure that that group of people are in COC funded PSH to make our partners' jobs easier, I guess I'd say, as far as compliance, because then you get into that whole like, oh, well, they came into the program before you made this policy change. You have to explain that every time, and I know some of you know. So we're kind of right now we're looking to make sure that do people have their best fit? So that's where we're starting. And then saying, like, if someone's been in permanent supportive housing for a longer period of time, they've increased their income, we are going to have conversations about, okay, while I know you appreciate this support, like, we're going to have you move on, right? And so there will be some hard conversations that are had, but right now where we're starting is really looking to see, are the best fit people in the right programs, and then how do we kind of move that around and make that be what we need to, and then kind of go from there.
Now, I know that the different COCs, because I spent a lot of my time predominantly in Dallas, learning about, Fort Worth. Now, I know they're separate entities, and we do our, Dallas is a point-in-time count. You guys do one here in Fort Worth, that determines how funding is delivered. But one of the things I've noticed is that we do, a lot of people being displaced and the nomadic nature of the clients we serve, they do go often back and forth to Fort Worth. And one of the problems that I came into years ago when I was a case manager for chronically homelessness, we have to be able to prove that through third-party letter or shelters and things like that. So I know that we may not be able to share the programs and the funding, but if we talk about being able to share the information so that we're able to track the homelessness, if a Fort Worth outreach team engages someone and updates their contact with their current living situation, so that we can help establish the history of homelessness for our clients.
So we actually have that now. So Texas has a state, state homeless data warehouse. We have a state warehouse though, where all the continuum of cares we enter our data, our data dumps into that, so that we can actually do that and see that. And I believe people just email coordinated. I'm looking around for my staff. Email coordinated. Yeah, okay, great. Bethany gives me a thumbs up, like, yes, you're saying the right thing. Email coordinated entry. So I think it's coordinated entry at ahomewithhope.org. And we can look in the state database. So continuums of care have access to that state database. And so we can help verify homelessness in a different place. So, and Dallas has access to that too. So I don't know what their process is, but if you're in Fort Worth and someone tells you I've been homeless somewhere else, we can help get that information. So yeah.
Hi, you gave a count like that 14% increase in your annual census. That number's like around a little bit over 3,000. Then you showed another slide that was like a subset of that number of the homeless who actually consume the services, right? Who use homeless services. You have another count that's like a little bit lower than that number, right?
So that was the Fort Worth specific count, because the 3,000 number is Tarrant and all of Tarrant and Parker County.
Okay.
And then the lower number was for the city of Fort Worth specifically.
My question is there's a gap between the census count, let's say in the city of Fort Worth versus those who use the services. Are there differences between, do you know the reasons as to why some utilize homeless services And are those similar characteristics on those people who refuse to use them, and is that changing over time?
So just as a clarification, so the difference in the number is one, like I said, one is Tarrant and Parker counties. So those are people who have interacted with services. The lower number is the city of Fort Worth specifically. You would find the difference in those in Arlington. So if anybody would like to hear this information again, I'll be doing an Arlington point in time count 1 week from today. In Arlington, outside of the cities in Tarrant County and in Parker County. So that's where that difference would be. As far as people engaging in services, do we see, was your question why they don't engage in services, or how do we capture that?
Is there a noticeable group that refuse homeless services, and what would those reasons be?
Rachel has an answer. I don't know that I have a great answer for that.
The difference between people engaging in services and what we see in our census count actually points more to capacity of the services that we have in our community. So we don't have enough services. We don't have enough shelter beds. We don't have enough outreach workers to serve everybody who needs it. Are there people that aren't engaging for other reasons? Yes, but largely it's a capacity issue.
Also, if you'd like a lot of detailed information, we also publish a 40-page report, the state of homelessness and housing in Tarrant and Parker counties, that will be on our website today. So you can get a lot of that information as well.
I want to know if you have any updates on the status of the emergency housing vouchers. That's a lot of people, and I'm wondering too if there's been any consideration of any that would have qualified for PSH. I know Tarrant County said get your most able-bodied people in housing, but all of our people are not able-bodied. So we did have a lot of disabled people put in EHP, and now they're at risk of losing their housing. Is there any look at if they qualify for a bridge with that word PSA?
We actually reached out to the state yesterday about EHVs. Tammy, let me loop back with you on that because it's a pretty program-specific question, if that's okay. It is 10 o'clock, so I do want to respect your time, and I love a meeting that ends on time. So thank you again for coming. I am happy to stick around and answer questions, and we're always here to support.